pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so, everybody hear us? So, first item is the public hearing on the local law for OHPC. I will say that there have been multiple questions I want to fielded this week about it, which has prompted us to look into some things like the district boundaries that are not greatly defined in the local law, so there's some discussion among the board about better definition to be added to the law about the historic boundaries.
Right, yeah, so you want me to touch on it?
Sure.
So when the historic district gets created, the village board can do that either by local law or by resolution. And in the prior two versions of the OHPC law, we did it directly in the local law. This current draft allows it to be done by, actually I think it's the commission itself. They would have the authority to designate the specific boundaries. That's why the local law doesn't say where the boundaries are. Now, we can do it any which way we want. I think we can build into the local law itself, as we have in the past, the express definition of what the boundaries are. And the only way to change it, of course, is also by local law. But for my view, however you would like to do that is certainly appropriate. So that's what the feedback from the public certainly is. I'm assuming the board would be in favor of revising the draft law to include that very expressly.
So Nate, that actually brings up a question that I had, which I had contemplated earlier when we were talking this over. But, so there were, in the original designations, there were homeowners or areas that opted out of the inclusion in the historic district. So would well, I guess, either way, when we set out to either define the parameters of it or we delegate that authority to the new commission, does that work have to all be done again? I mean, do you have to go around and get everyone to opt in? So for example, Armstrong Street and Academy Street are not included in the local law, even though they're part of the survey that was done in '77 and have historic or have homes which are listed in that survey.
And so the intent of the local law is not to change the boundaries of the existing historic district.
Okay.
The intent is to keep the boundaries exactly where they were. If you're in it now, you're still in it. It's not to take anyone in or out. And so, given the purpose of it is to really focus on the administrative procedures for review of specific applications, I don't believe we need to go back out and survey. Now, that being said, if the board wanted to, I think you could, and maybe update the boundaries. That's more than what we were contemplating doing at the time that this discussion of updating this law came about.
Well, so I think that also might open the question about the survey, because that is something that is supposed to be done periodically by either the village or the commission, and it's been probably 20 years since that was done. So.
Right, 20 years. I think you said that the map was last updated in 1998. So
that would be 20 years, right?
I mean, certainly, I think we could take I'll say a twofold approach. One, updating the law, like we've already been talking about, and we'll hear more from the public in a moment about other tweaks or changes to the draft law.
Yeah.
And then two, the board could authorize a survey to update the community input on the boundaries.
Okay.
Whether that means it expands or contracts the high force, I don't know at this point, right? Or stays the same.
Okay. Right. That answers my question.
Anybody else have any discussion before the public hearing portion? All right, so we will open it up to the public hearing. Just get a microphone over here, just state your name, address, that kind of thing.
Okay. Thank you.
Is this on? Oh. Yeah, it is. Nadine Bixby, 244 Main Street, Owego, New York. I'm also currently the chair of the Owego Historic Preservation Advisory Committee. And before I start with my prepared remarks, I think I would like to weigh in a little bit about this discussion about the boundaries. The full intent, the reference to the historic district, that it's called the historic district in the law, there's no trick to this. It meant that it is the historic district with the boundaries as we know it, as it is filed with the CRIS system. I had two people check this out today, and the map that the mayor put up onto the village website is correct, and that is the map that we were talking about, and we had no intention of changing it in any way whatsoever. It usually comes within the responsibilities of a commission they usually will contract or get a grant from the Preservation League and that's where some of that funding money comes from, to do another kind of measurement and go through and to look at all the different buildings. Ours is 20 years old. We were thinking about, that was one of the things that we would like to do in the future, and we were going to work on that. So, but I just would like to allay any fears that there's no plan here to like dissolve the historic district and sort of create a new one. And surprise, guess what? You're in the historic district and you didn't know it. That's not what's going on here. And I hardly endorse, if it helps, to add an addendum with the map or something along those lines to really clarify that. That would be fine with us. So if that helps with that. So I have three questions I wanted to begin with tonight as I was thinking about this issue. And why a historic district is the first one. Why this law? And why now? There are more than 2,300 local historic districts in the United States. The first one was created in 1931 in Charleston, South Carolina. Our own historic district was established by local commission in 1980, taking the place of an established historical architectural district. In 1966, the Department of the Interior established the National Register of Historic Places. And while a National Register listing is an honorary designation, local historic districts such as ours are the ones with teeth. Commissions issue design guidelines that oversees changes made to the properties within the district. Now, some people are concerned that being in a historic district will disable them from making changes. The purpose of a historic district is not to make it impossible to make changes. It is to make sure that the change is appropriate. Therefore, the current Preservation Advisory Committee and the future Historic Preservation Commission are charged with issuing certificates of appropriateness, which open the door to procuring building permits in the historic district. Our community has had such a successful system at work for almost 50 years. Over 50 years ago, our historic district was put in place because people here saw something special, and creating a district was an acceptable level of oversight and input by its very own community of peers. New York is a home rule state, placing responsibilities in the hands of local residents for their local laws. Home rule is the community's strength. The work of commission review will preserve the historic significance, beauty, and integrity that attracted people to the district in the first place. When you buy a property in a historic district, you can rest assured that in 30 years, it will tend to look very much the same, probably better. In an area, if an area has caught the attention of a community so that it gave it historic district protection, it must be special already. In our case, a walk through our village's historic district is a walk through the history of our nation. Each property in this district tells the story of an era. Preservation honors the workmanship and values of the local people who designed and built these buildings. Through various modes of economic support, New York State and the federal government have agreed that the historic district of the village of Owego is notable and significant and should be cared for and not lost to demolition or inappropriate changes. We are the longest contiguous historic district in New York State.
We are important. It is quite possible to lose the very things that attracted people to our district in the first place. It is important for property owners to know that the purview of the Historic Districts Commission is limited to only things that can be seen from a public way. It has nothing to do with interiors. The only time the commission will be involved in the interior of a building is when it is a building that the public has open access to, such as our historic county courthouse. This interior purview does not include any of the commercial interiors that are privately owned, nor does it include any private residential property interiors. The commission does not and will not restrict color choice on the exterior of buildings. The commission is available to make recommendations based upon historic palette color choices vetted by local historians. Paint color is not a permanent change to the building. Historic districts enhance property values. This is borne out by an analysis of real estate values in historic districts conducted recently by the economist Donovan Rakima of Washington, D.C., and cited recently in Forbes magazine. Quote, "The results of these studies are remarkably consistent. Property values in local historic districts appreciate significantly faster than the market as a whole in the vast majority of cases, and they appreciate at rates equivalent to the market in the worst case. Simply put, historic districts enhance property values. Historic districts benefit the contained and surrounding community and county. Recently, a report issued by Rutgers University on the economic impact of the federal historic tax credit for 2017 states that numerous studies have shown that a $1 million investment in historic rehabilitation yields markedly better effects on employment, income, GDP, state and local taxes than an equivalent investment amount in new construction or even manufacturing or services. These findings demonstrate that historic rehabilitation, combined holistically with a broader economic plan, delivers a powerful return from the initial investment." Why this law? Our historic district deserves a strong local preservation law. In September 2018, 5 community members, myself, Tamara Gates, Brian Kennedy, Christina Knickerbocker, and James Overheiser, were appointed by Mayor Barrett and approved by this Board of Trustees and sworn into office by the village clerk to serve on the Owego Historic Preservation Advisory Committee. This was done so that the village would be in compliance with the Village of Owego Local Law Number 5 of 2017. This group agreed to serve on an OHPAC on a contingency basis. In response, the board agreed to move forward and develop a new local preservation law, which would create a new autonomous historic preservation commission. This is the law reviewed and discussed tonight. The Owego Historic Preservation Advisory Committee has done its due diligence and has been working with the village code enforcement officer, mayor, and trustees while reviewing applications for certificates of appropriateness in the historic district. All of our meetings have been announced and open to the public. Our agendas and minutes have been posted on the village website as required by the New York State Open Meetings Law. We have been transparent every step of the way. We have been working closely with applicants to help meet their goals while respecting and incorporating Owego's historic district guidelines and the guidelines laid down by the U.S. Secretary of the Interior. Our aim and focus has been to assist and support applicants in a respectful and cooperative manner. The proposed preservation law will include a new Historic Preservation Commission. This new law is based upon and adapted from the Model Landmarks Preservation Local Law for New York State municipalities, July 2014. In July 2014, the Preservation League of New York State and the New York State Historic Preservation Office developed a revised and expanded model preservation law to allow municipalities such as ours to update their existing laws and to encourage more communities to evaluate and implement historic resource protection. New York's first local landmark was adopted in 1954 in Schenectady, New York, and subsequently over 175 municipalities across the state have adopted some form of standard historic or architectural resource protection. Over 80 of those municipalities meet federal certified local government, CLG, requirements, a national benchmark for local historic preservation initiative. The State Preservation Office, referred to as SHPO, and the Tioga County Legislature have given their approval to this Village of Owego law. Trustee Ed Norton has worked collaboratively with me and the village attorney in modifying this local model law to meet Owego's specific needs. There are a few differences between this new law and the current village preservation law. The first is the creation of an autonomous Owego Historic Preservation Commission to replace the OHPAC. Creating a new commission puts the village back into alignment with previous effective Village of Owego preservation laws stretching back almost 50 years. A commission can serve the community most effectively without needing to submit redundant applications to the Board of Trustees for subsequent approval. It can autonomously approve applications for certificates of appropriateness, which are required for their authorization of building permits in the historic district. The current advisory process has proven to be cumbersome and slow and places a burden on the Board of Trustees without appropriate training to act as informed and effective stewards of historic preservation. The process under the current law can easily add an unnecessary month onto the application process before work can begin on a planned project. The number of commission members remains at 5 with terms of 3 years. The mayor will be able to appoint 5 non-voting auxiliary members to the new commission for terms of 1 year. This would give auxiliary members some advisory capacity to the commission's decision-making and would also be a training ground for prospective commissioners. It would allow a city commission to plug into the expertise of others who could fill a particular void on the commission's membership. The new law also allows the village in the future to hire a professional historic preservation planner to assist the commission's work. This professional would be permitted to award administrative certificates of appropriateness for certain work as distinctly outlined in the new law. These administrative certificates would not need the review of the entire commission. The commission chair would be a partner in the process. This section of the law is included in the event that the village could pay for this position through a grant or partnership with a sponsoring graduate program such as Cornell University, or through the Tioga County Legislature's support, or by some other means. Another change will be the posting of physical certificates of appropriateness upon the applicant properties. These will be seen in conjunction with the posted village building permits. The posting of certificates of appropriateness serves to inform and educate the public about approved work being conducted on site. It also clarifies interactions between the code enforcement officer and the property owners. The importance of the CLG. One village-wide advantage obtained from the creation of the new commission is that the village would be eligible to be recognized once again as a certified local government. There are many financial advantages and benefits available to the village of Owego if it becomes a CLG. Every federal fiscal year, New York State sets aside 10% of the state's allocation of federal historic preservation funds for pass-through directly to certified local governments. These competitive grants typically range from $1,200 to $29,000. Being a CLG also puts the village into an advanced position when applying for other grants. Simply put, CLGs get moved to the top of the pile of applications. In addition, all CLGs are eligible to receive a variety of services from the State Historic Preservation Office, which currently are not accessible to us, including ongoing focused support, technical preservation assistance, legal advice, direct involvement in SHPO programs such as identifying programs that may be eligible for listing in the state and national registers, training opportunities that increase the ability of communities to protect their historic resources and integrate them into short and long-term planning initiatives. The Village of Owego received its CLG rating before New York City. To have a CLG, municipalities must have a historic preservation commission. We need to get this valuable tool back. The CLG process is administered by the State Historic Preservation Office, which is ready to assist the village with the application process as soon as the new law is passed by the village law board. And why now? The village is the recent recipient of a $10 million New York State Downtown Revitalization Initiative grant. We anticipate that a significant portion of this grant money will be spent in the historic district. Before receiving building permits, the projects in the historic district will need to be reviewed by the new OHPC. The work facing the commission is daunting and will need community support in its ongoing work. These monies are not gifts. They are our hard-earned tax dollars being returned to our community for investment instead of these same dollars going somewhere else. When this application was submitted, when the DRI application was submitted by our intrepid team Tioga, the village still had its CLG rating. This certainly helped us win the significant award because the presence of the CLG rating determines clear and responsible local oversight for the funds being dispersed. Mayor Beretta and the Board of Trustees have been studying and preparing to vote on this new local preservation law for weeks. Our historic district of Owego absolutely deserves a strong preservation law. The law being proposed tonight is a good law for now and for the future. Let's get our CLG back and get ready for the serious DRI work ahead of us. I urge you all to vote yea and adopt this law tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I will.
I'm not very good at public speaking. I just wondered why the map was so different from what 126.3C said on the code.
That's a good question. I'm not familiar specifically with the outline boundary of the map, but given that the local law indicates specifically what the boundaries are, I have to check back to 1998 when the map was apparently updated and ask Rod to pull the minutes from whatever meeting approved the revisions to that map.
And I have a couple questions for you. You say color's not important, but on 3 pages I picked out the word color 8 times. And you say you don't have any control over what you can't see, but you talk about fences in people's backyards. If I want to put a roof on my house, how long is it going to take me to get my application approved?
Not very long.
You want a sample of the shingle I'm going to use and what color I'm going to use it, and you say color is not important?
I don't think I said color was not important. Color isn't as of aesthetic importance, but we won't tell you what color.
Then why do you need a physical shingle in the color in which I'm going to apply?
Part of the role, is that okay for me to speak to her? Is that, like, she's looking at me for answers.
Well, you were the one that stood up here and said color is not an issue.
Point of information, this is a presentation to the board, not to the public. The board is the people that are going to be voting.
I'm questioning the law.
So I guess we can take questions about them and get your answers.
Okay. Is it public who got grant money to do their historic homes and who gets the abatements?
Abatements?
Yes.
Do you mean, abatements usually means?
I can show you a copy of what I was handed last year by the historical.
Yeah, I mean, I don't believe the village itself provides tax relief. I think that's be through the state or federal government. Usually that information should be available. I'm not sure if the village, I'd have to ask Rob's office, if they have a list or a report showing that specific information.
And that's all I have.
Okay. Anybody else?
Hello, I'm Serena Hall. I live at 396 Front Street. I am a board member of PASS, which is the Preservation Association of the Southern Tier. We educate people in historic preservation, and we encourage and celebrate historic preservation. And we would just like to thank you, Mayor Beretta, and the board tonight for considering this local law at this time. So thank you very much.
Peter Gordon, 536 Fifth Avenue. I just want to speak in support of the new law. And it's not as complicated as people are implying. And I had checked the boundaries versus the National Park Service and on New York State CRIS, and they match the boundaries that you had posted on the village website.
This map?
Yes. So they're on the two legislative bodies.
I did find that this map doesn't match what's in the old, or the current.
Steve Terry, 359 Main Street. Just to Cindy's one, and the only thing I would add, what was said in the first presentation, written in here, what was sent out, it says that painting of exterior wood and metal materials and previously painted masonry materials with color as pre-approved at time to time by the commission. That doesn't sound like I get to pick my color. I'm just, there's a lot of examples in it. So before you pass it, we need to be very clear that I don't want to be told one thing and then find out something later on. That's my point. And that's directly from me.
That's on page 11 of the local law. The board members wanted to just reference the language that he's pointing to. On page 11, at the top. And that's actually tied to, I think, the administrative certificate of approval specifically. That's, however, not to say that the board itself put in, so that, let me even try to recap a little bit. The administrative certificate of approval is what the local, I forget exactly the title of this individual, but the person who would internally within the village be able to approve a change or repair or whatever the word is without having to go to the full historic preservation commission. And so when you talk to this individual, they might have a list of pre-approved colors, for example, that only require the administrative review process.
But I believe there's only approved colors is what I'm gathering.
For the administrative review process, and this is going to be a point of discussion, I guess, with the commission, what colors would they pre-approve for administrative review? That doesn't mean that you still can't get other colors approved, which would require the full commission to review. To your point or your question, does that mean color is something that might get discussed? I think under the draft of the local law, it could be. It's not excluded from their review. So, you're concerned about, well, you want to know what color. I think that is something that could be asked by the commission to show.
We're true to that, but the original opening statement was that was not going to be something that they would control.
That would be a
Did I
change.
hear that correctly or not?
I think that's out there so that it's as a deterrent for those who want to go for hot pink.
Well, I
Splashy
understand, but that's a
purple.
slippery slope from saying you can pick, you can't.
But
be automatic.
there's been a purple house and a we go, and right now there's a very bright blue house with a yellow door.
I understand
I think
that.
those were painted
I'm
red.
just asking the question, how it was just presented there in the beginning is not what it says there. I understand that it means something different.
And was the society attacked at that time when the purple
Yes,
house
it
was
was.
there?
Yes, I was chairman, and
Okay.
we specifically said we don't do paint colors of houses for the same reason that Nadine mentioned. They are not permanent. Rip your porch off, it's hard to put it back. Or take the second floor off your house and make it a one-story house. It's kind of hard to rebuild the second floor. But you want hot paint, the next owner can buy another can of paint and choose a different color. It was controversial. Some people thought we ought to do it, but the commission has never, ever told people what color to paint their house. That specific reference that he made may be something arcane, but remember, it's not for the OHPC. It's for somebody that wants to bypass the OHPC and just get a permit from the administrative officer.
So I think the point really is just that color is in this law and not in the old history of the village. So that's something.
Yeah, so if I could speak to that, the section that is in question 11, and it's under 12611B, Administrative Certificate of Appropriateness. And actually, Rusty and I had a conversation about this earlier today. This section is designed to, as Mr. Allen said, is designed to allow a homeowner who wants to make minor changes to be able to get a certificate of appropriateness without having to go through the full review process. So it's here as sort of a carve-out. But what Rusty and I discussed earlier is, because it brings those things into the law, maybe it's got some unintended consequences to it. So I'm not sure where we stand on that.
I would agree.
Rich Watkins, 27 Ross Street. I'm not sure who I should address this to, whether it be to the board or to Ms. Bickfield because of the presentation. She currently serves on that committee. My curious question, whether it be to you or to you, you actually existed this summer. There was no lapse in committee or anything, because I had a property next door to me in my backyard who...
You didn't exist this summer,
You didn't exist.
Until September.
not until September.
Okay, so then I guess my question would be, if I violate the current laws, correct me if I'm wrong, I am going to be corrected, forced to change, or do whatever it is I did incorrectly, okay? Now, if the shoe's on the other foot, okay? If a property owner goes and gets just a permit in the historic district, they put in a pool, which I consider a major project. This isn't just a small project, because I know there's a differentiation between, what is it, type A and type B, whatever that differentiation is. I went to Mr. Souls and also to the